Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. We're just opening the meeting and making sure everyone's connected before we call it to order.
Okay.
Oh, I see member Patino in attendees.
Great.
Hello, Chair.
Hey, good evening, everyone. All right, Adrienne, are we ready to go?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I have 5:01 by my watch. Welcome to the Board of Directors meeting for East Bay Community Energy. Today's Wednesday, July 20th, 2022. And I don't know about you, but this is my last evening meeting before we go on our summer break. So my family's really happy about that. Excuse me if they're in the background making noise. We're meeting this evening via teleconference pursuant to exceptions to the Brown Act laid out in Assembly Bill 361. The public is allowed to participate in this meeting via Zoom via the link that was provided in the agenda. During public comment, please use the raise hand feature to be recognized, or if you're joining by phone, please use *9 to raise your hand, and after you're recognized, use *6 to unmute yourself. And with that, I will turn things over to our board clerk to please call the roll.
Great. Thank you very much. Alameda County. Alameda County. Albany.
Here.
Thank you. Berkeley. Berkeley. Dublin. Dublin. Fremont. Fremont. Hayward.
Here.
Fremont's here. Teresa Cox.
Thank you. Livermore.
Here.
Thank you. Newark.
Here.
Thank you. Oakland.
Here.
Thank you. Piedmont.
Here.
Thank you. Pleasanton.
Here.
Great, thank you. Tracy. Tracy. Union City.
Here.
Thank you. Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
Thank you. San Leandro.
Present.
Thank you. Emeryville.
I am here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. Did you catch member Hahn joining us? Welcome, alternate Hahn.
Berkeley
Great,
is
thank
here. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now is the time for public comment. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address the board on any EBCE related matters that are not otherwise on the meeting agenda. Public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time the matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the board are customarily limited to 2 minutes per speaker and must complete an electronic speaker slip. Have any electronic comments been submitted, Adrienne?
There have been no comments submitted for public comment.
Okay, and no speaker cards, and I don't see any hands raised. I'll give it a few seconds just in case folks change their mind. And seeing no hands raised, we'll go ahead and conclude public comment at this time and move us to our consent agenda. Colleagues, there are several items on the consent agenda, including the minutes, the AB 361 findings for continued remote meetings, and then several contracts and the treasurer's report. So colleagues, is there anything that anyone would like to discuss or any items to pull from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, I'll just double check with our clerk. Is there any comment submitted on the consent agenda?
There are no comments submitted for the consent agenda.
Okay. And seeing no hands raised, we'll bring it back to the board for any discussion or motion. Member Hannon.
Yes, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Member Hannon, and I think I recognized Member Patino's voice as the second. Please call the roll.
Great, thank you. Alameda County. Albany,
Yes.
Berkeley,
Yes.
thank you. Dublin, Fremont,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Livermore,
Yes.
Newark,
Yes.
Oakland,
Aye.
Piedmont,
Aye.
Pleasanton,
Aye.
Tracy, Union City,
Yes.
San Leandro,
Yes.
Emeryville.
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved.
Very good. That'll bring us to item 13, which is the CEO report. I'll cede the floor to Nick Chassett.
You. Adrian, are we gonna?
Yes, my apologies. I'm
No,
just,
no problem. Take your time. Okay, great. So we had an executive committee meeting last month where we focused on a discussion of the joint rate mailer, which we're also going to be presenting this evening. We had a really interesting and informative special board retreat as well, focused on power procurement and market conditions. So thank so many of you for joining us there and participating. I'm also happy to share we have a couple of new colleagues. Sophia Hecht is joining us as our marketing content coordinator. Sophia is going to be in that role, doing a lot of our social media. So welcome. Oh, Director Kumagai, I see a raised hand.
I just moved him over to the panelist area.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. Nick, did you have more?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, very good. Welcome to Sophie, to the staff, and welcome Member Kumagai to the meeting. Colleagues, is there any questions or discussion on the CEO report? And for those of you who weren't able to join the power procurement special board retreat, that's something that we've started to do annually to just give us a refresher on what's going on with power procurement at the agency. And you can always watch the very informative meeting online if you were not able to attend. Next up, we will have the Community Advisory Committee report. And I know our chair is here. I saw her just a moment ago. Okay, welcome Anna Olivia Aldred. I will cede the floor to you for that report.
Thank you very much. So we met on Monday and welcomed Member Souza as a full member, stepping up to replace Mary Sutter. So thank you to staff for how smooth that transition was, and for having actual alternates who are ready to step into things, which is great. We're interested in learning about the process to replace that alternate seat, as it's important. The public comment that we received was primarily focused on some concern regarding the $15 million grant or the proposed $15 million grant to Children's Benioff Hospital, and also some concern around the power content label. And just wanted to really express some gratitude to staff around one of the items that was on the consent agenda, especially around it's the Sunrun Resource Adequacy Amendment, and really just recognizing how hard staff is working to try and find a solution to a fairly complicated problem. There was definitely a desire from the members and the public to learn more details on what is preventing the implementation of a virtual net energy metering project, and also some not exactly related, but sort of tangential concerns around the life cycle of solar panels and whether or not as an agency we're looking at that, and also looking at the customer relationship specifically with leased, like solar leasing contracts that are supported, or an endorsement is given by this agency, or there's a financial incentive or rebate or something provided by EBCE to make sure that those contracts are being managed a way where the specific concern that was brought was specifically around making sure that the relationship with that customer is maintained as opposed to having the contract sold. And so just seeing what that life cycle is like with our solar rental customers. And the other items that we discussed are on tonight's agenda. So we will be bringing up our comments at that time. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chair Eldred. Any questions for Chair Eldred on the CAC report? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next item, which is the legislative update. I see Melissa Brandt here to report, and the floor is yours, Melissa.
Great, thank you, and good evening, everyone. So this time we are going to be discussing the state legislative update, as well as, for the first time, I believe, a federal legislative update for you, which Alec Ward on my team will give that portion. We've decided not to move forward with our recommendation on a vote on the federal side, so there's only one issue that we're asking the board to take a position on in terms of the state bill. So next slide, please. All right, so where are we in the legislative year? It's quickly coming to an end here. The legislature is currently on summer recess, and bills that are moving forward had to move out of policy committees as of the beginning of this month. So now bills are going to be waiting for us when the legislature returns at the beginning of August in their appropriations committees, and have to pass out of those by August 12th. And then finally, there's going to be the mad dash to pass the bills for each house on the floor by the 31st of August. And then the governor has a month to sign or veto bills. So that's kind of where we are in the process. Next slide, please. So in terms of the state budget, just wanted to give you an update on the energy budget trailer bill, which was chaptered on the 30th of June. So that is now in effect. I will say that folks anticipate that there may be another energy budget trailer bill, as this one was very broad stroke, and there are some issues that many folks are hoping to see resolved and kind of additional details worked out. So we haven't heard yet whether there's another budget trailer bill in the works for energy, but we're certainly keeping a close eye on that. And when the legislature comes back, then we'll probably have better intel than we do at the moment. But in terms of what did the energy budget trailer bill do, it extended the CAP program for arrearage forgiveness. This is really great for us. It enables us to continue to offer that arrearage forgiveness for our customers who are impacted, particularly because of COVID. Then it also created some strategic reliability reserve programs and some emergency supply and load reduction on the distributed electricity side, as well as demand side grid support. And then probably you've heard fairly controversially about the strategic reliability reserve program, which is $5 billion given to DWR to invest in reliability projects. Then it also has a new certification process meant to streamline siting. It would offer financial incentives for projects that are doing long duration energy storage. And it also allows the CPUC to make some changes for the utilities rates, particularly for residential fixed charges. So there's currently a fairly limited cap on residential fixed charges. That cap has been removed, and fixed charges is also removed for care customers. So we're expecting a PUC proceeding to kind of work out the details for what those charges could look like. But again, that's really on the utility side of the bill, not particularly the distribution side of the bill, not the side of the bill that we compare ourselves to. And so that's where we're at with the state budget at the moment. Next slide, please. So then we had one state bill position to put before you today. There is a bill SB 1385 authored by Cortez and sponsored by the California State Association of Electrical Workers and the Coalition of California Utility Employees. And this bill would establish a new multifamily housing local solar program, and essentially would require the investor-owned utilities to construct solar and storage systems on their distribution systems in front of customers' meters, so not the behind the meter, which is what we have, for example, with NEM. And it has to be on or near multifamily housing. And so regardless of the merits of this bill, it may not affect us so much, except for the fact that we could be in a situation where the investor-owned utilities are enrolling our customers in this program and then serving them generation, which is obviously what we provide our customers. So we wanted to take an oppose unless amended position and make sure to specify that should this program go forward, that CCA customers are not eligible to be part of this program. We have our own community solar programs at the moment that are funded by the CPUC, and there are a number of other programs as well that are state-run that customers are eligible for. But this one particularly, because it's run by the investor-owned utilities and doesn't necessarily offer the same benefits, is a program that we're a bit concerned about. So I'll leave that there, and I can also provide.
There are a couple hands up, Melissa. Can you take some questions at this time?
Sure.
Sorry, I think I'm freezing a little bit, but there's a couple of questions from the board. Would you be able to take questions at this time?
I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, I see Director Kalb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Melissa. So on this 1385, is this the bill that the sponsors are trying to help the utilities squeeze out the behind the meter solar companies? Is that, I mean,
I will certainly say that the behind the meter solar companies are opposing this bill.
yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
All right, I don't see any other hands raised, so do go ahead.
Okay, so then I can also provide an update on the next slides about our other bills. I don't know if you wanted to decide on taking a position on Cortez before we move forward, or would you like me to finish the presentation?
Let's go through with the rest of the presentation first, please.
Okay, great. So on the assembly side, here's kind of our bill tracker. The Grayson bill, as you know, was withdrawn quite a while ago. Via Padua's bill was vetoed by the governor, unfortunately. The Ting bill, we continue to watch, but never decided that it was worth taking a position on, and I don't think we have any major concerns with it. AB 2667 is the Friedman bill that the board took an oppose unless amended position on. This bill was rewritten to no longer provide incentives that we would have been able to apply for. So what interested us in the bill initially, but it also clarifies the definition of electrical corporations in ways that could edge out distributed energy resources from being able to provide the services that they do today. So that's very concerning for us, and a bill that we are actively opposing at the moment. And then AB 2765 was held, so it's no longer moving forward. Next slide, please. On the Senate side, we took a support if amended position on SB 1020, Laird's bill, that would set interim targets for meeting our renewable energy goals, but had some concerning language about state agency load and procurement for that load, as well as it creates a new fund, but then requires matching grant to access the fund, which could put us at a competitive disadvantage compared to the utilities. So we are hoping that we can continue to work with the author's office to get a couple of amendments, which would then put us in full support on this bill. SB 1063 is Skinner's bill that we took a support position on. That one continues to move forward on accelerating energy efficient appliance standards at the CEC. SB 1112 is the Becker Bill that would require energy suppliers to record decarbonization charge notices, which is intended to help accelerate building decarbonization, and is a bill that we're pleased to see is moving forward. SB 1158 is a bill we've continued to watch that would change the power source disclosure rules, and we continue to discuss with the other CCAs and with the author's office about sort of the details of this one and implementation challenges. So we never took a position on this one either, but would continue to watch and discuss. And then finally, SB 1393 is Archuleta's bill that we took an opposed position on, that would require local jurisdictions to consider CEC guidance if it wants to require that retrofits to buildings upgrade fossil to electric. I will say that this one has been softened quite a bit from when we originally took an opposed position. So this is a bill that we have not been actively lobbying at this time. So I believe that's the last slide I had. Adrian, can you just click through to the next one? Oh, yeah, and then we have the federal legislative updates. So I'm going to actually turn this over to Alec on our team.
If you don't mind pausing just for a second, I see a raised hand. Chair Aldred, did you have a question on the state update?
No, we just have the CAC has a recommendation. And so when it's time for that.
Very good. I'll call on you for that. So let's, Member Hannon, did you have a question?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. Could you go back to the previous slide? I just want a little bit of clarification, if I may, on SB 1393. Could you describe to me what CEC guidance looks like?
So the CEC is required to publish guidance on their website that is meant to help with jurisdictions as they decide how they're going to implement new requirements around upgrading to fossil appliances to electric. So they're required to put out guidance, and local jurisdictions at one point were required to apply to the CEC before being able to make this change. Now they're just required to consider the guidance that will be posted on the CEC's website.
Okay, so that would, of course, interest me. You'll keep us posted if that language changes, putting
Yes,
additional burdens or mandates on local jurisdictions.
correct.
Thank you very much. Great.
You can, Member Kalb, question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you, Melissa, could you go back to Assemblymember Laura Friedman's bill that where our position is changing, or
We did change our position, yes, from a support to an oppose unless amended.
oh, so we already took that change in position.
That's right.
Okay, and do you know where the broadly defined environmental community is, both on the early version of the bill and on the current version?
I think that this bill has not been high on the radar of the environmental community. It was a bit more of the DER community, and DER folks were initially very excited about the bill. The DER folks have been much less excited since the amendments were introduced that would define the electrical corporations in a way that could prevent the DER folks from doing what it is they're trying to do. And it could prevent us from doing the work we do to the extent that we are contracting with third-party DER providers who may no longer be able to do what they're trying to do. Yeah.
And when was the bill changed? Was it before it got out of the first house or after?
No, it was actually right before the, I think it was right after it got out of the first house, right before the policy committee hearing.
So is there a coalition effort underway to ask the Assembly member to just drop the bill?
That has been discussed, certainly, yes. And we've been in close contact with the sponsors as well. It is our understanding that the bill, the added language was added by the utility labor union folks, and they've been pretty adamant that that stay in the bill, and it's been difficult to take out. And so it is one option is that the bill just doesn't move forward, certainly. And as I said, the part of the bill we were most excited about was struck in the last set of amendments, which would have created some funding for those of us that are trying to reduce peak load.
Okay. If you and I could talk offline, I'm happy to reach out to the Assembly member who I know pretty well at some point in time if you think that's necessary or helpful.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Member Kalb. And we could go on to the federal update.
Great, thank you. Alec Ward, Associate Policy Manager of EBCE. Going to give you all just a quick update as to some federal policy opportunities that are now ahead of us. This is kind of a new area where we're expanding, and again, there's a lot of opportunity there. So we're excited about this. I've got in front of you 3 of them. As Melissa alluded to, it's unfortunately been winnowed down to 2 at this point. The first item on there, which we were going to vote on tonight, was the reconciliation package. That was a climate package. And it was taken off the table last week as Senator Manchin was no longer interested in trying to pursue that this Congress. It would have been potentially very beneficial to EBCE. It had a slew of provisions in there, including extending the investment tax credit, the production tax credit, clean energy manufacturing tax credits, EV tax credits, and potentially even a fee on methane emissions. You might remember a lot of this was originally in Build Back Better. That was last winter. Similarly, Senator Manchin from West Virginia held that from moving forward. It needs 50 votes to get through. All the rest of the Dems were seemingly in alignment. There was months and months of kind of backroom intense negotiating around this, but it is now officially at this point not moving forward. So we're out of time in this Congress really for a substantial climate package. We do hope though to push a lot of these items, as many as possible, in the next Congress. So sorry to start this out with bad news, but the good thing is we definitely have some potential right in front of us. That's the next 2 items that are still on this list. The second item here is community project funding. That's what the House is calling it. The Senate is calling it congressionally directed spending. I'll just refer to it as earmarks. That's what I think most people know it as, just easier to say that all the acronyms. So what these are, earmarks help legislators, they can designate funding in an appropriations bill, and they can do it for specific projects. They get thousands and thousands of requests, and they're only really able to submit a limited number of funding requests. So we submitted requests for solar and storage on municipal buildings for resilience. And we also submitted requests for EV charger installations in multifamily housing neighborhoods. All of these projects would have taken place all across the EBCE territory. So we were very excited. We got great news last month that a lot of our projects have actually started moving forward. That's Representative Swalwell, Representative Khanna, Senator Padilla, Senator Feinstein. All of them put forth 7 of our projects for a potential total of $7.43 million. So I don't want to get hopes too high. This is not an assured amount. In fact, it would be quite incredible if we were to get all of this funding. We still have some way to go before we see any actual money. It's got to pass through the Senate. Then it needs to be combined, signed by the president. But it's very likely that we will be getting some of this funding, and we're just excited to have made it through the biggest winnowing part of the process. So we're standing in good shape. Deadline for this would be October 1st. If I had a crystal ball, I'd say very unlikely that this would pass in time. I imagine they'll do a short stop, just a smaller appropriations bill, and then more heavily debate out a lot of the appropriations potentially in December or later this year. But we will see. Last thing on this list, third item, that's the infrastructure bill. You all might remember that passed last fall. That's dedicating $1.2 trillion in funding for a wide array of public projects, energy, water, broadband, transportation. We're currently right now very much engaging in how these programs are being implemented, both at the federal and the state level. We want to move forward with as many partners as we can, potentially submit some joint applications. So all of this is in the works, and we see a lot of opportunity here to really bolster the great work that our programs team is doing. Some of the most important and the buckets that stand out that we're most excited about potentially accessing through applications once these programs open later this year. Those are EV charging stations, resiliency programs, and also EE programs. So lots of opportunity here, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it as these programs are released throughout the year.
Great,
That
thank you,
should
Alec.
conclude. Sure.
Thank you. Any questions for Alec or Melissa before we take public comment? Member Hannon.
Yes, thank you. Alex, thanks for the report. Just real quickly, I think you indicated that there were 7 projects that were identified, public projects for solar power on public buildings. Did I hear that correctly?
Right. That would be on municipal buildings that help serve during emergency situations. So, for example, fire stations throughout our territory.
And were those put forward by the congressional representatives for those districts to begin with?
That was actually EBCE run. So we submitted these projects. We were talking with municipalities about how we'd like to put them forward, and they were partnering with us on them. And then we submitted it to the federal representative, the House member, and then they have put it forth to the Appropriations Committee.
Thank you. And you may have identified this previously in one other report, but can you list those 7 projects at this time, or would it be easier for you to simply send out a memorandum to the board?
Sure, I can, just in an abbreviated sense, I can say that the solar and storage projects are on Fremont buildings, Hayward, and Berkeley and San Leandro buildings. And the EV projects that I mentioned would be San Leandro, Hayward, and Livermore. And I'm happy
I think it's important to note for those projects, this is not, sort of us just saying, oh, we like this project. We've been going for almost 2 years now, going through our municipal solar and storage or critical facilities program. And so, that was an opportunity that was, kind of made available to all of our cities, and certain cities, move forward more quickly than others. And so we're able to sort of get their facilities into this phase 1. And so we really had to limit ourselves to the sites that were in our phase 1 of our municipal critical facilities program.
And I appreciate that. We built, of course, a brand new civic center here in Newark. And I wanted to make sure that when we did construction of the new project, that it was solar, had solar capacity at some point in the future. So I think we would not have been ready for this first round, but certainly if there's other opportunities, I would certainly look to put Newark forward with our new civic center project. Thank you, Alec, I appreciate it.
And thank you for the question. And just to note as well, this is an annual process now. It actually restarted last year. So since it went so well this year so far, lots of opportunity ahead, I think, annually to work together on these projects.
Great, thank you. And before we take public comment, Alec, thank you for your presentation, by the way. I just wanted to ask, your ears to the floor, what are the chances that there's going to be executive action taken on declaring a climate emergency? I hear buzz about that.
Yeah, I know today it was just flirted with in a speech from President Biden. He's getting a lot of pressure, especially after the Supreme Court decision and with Manchin walking away from reconciliation. So it looks like people are more bullish than ever right now that this might actually occur. I'm always hesitant to guess anything on the federal level if it'll happen, especially this past year. But if I were to guess, I would say we're looking at a situation where this could be a real possibility this year.
I was just seeing journalists on Twitter saying, I have it on very good information from multiple sources, and then saying, never mind.
Right.
This time I would like to pause and see if there's any public comment on this item. I'll check with our board clerk to see if anyone has submitted speaker cards or electronic comment before we check the attendees list.
There have been no speaker cards submitted, and there are no hands raised for public comment at this time.
I have to apologize. My internet is a little slow, so I just stopped my video, but could you repeat yourself?
Yes. There were no speaker cards submitted, nor are there hands raised for public comment.
Very good, thank you. So we'll bring it back to the board for deliberation. And I'd first like to recognize Chair Eldred to deliver the CAC's take on our legislative package and the recommended position.
Thank you, Chair Martinez. So the Community Advisory Committee is grateful for the presentation that was given to us on Monday. We had a vote 6 in favor and 1 abstention in favor of staff's recommendation to on the Cortez bill, whose number I am forgetting right now. And just we got a slightly broader explanation of what was inside of the bill, and my personal enthusiastic opposition of this as well. So we thank staff for bringing us such a solid report and for being proactive on protecting our customers.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, is there any other discussion on this recommended staff position on SB 1385, the Cortez bill? Is there any opposition to taking the staff recommendation, or do we need to have a motion on this, Inder?
My unmute button precise. You do not need a motion on this, Chair. This is
Okay.
informational.
Great, so I'm just checking to see if there's any opposition to taking the staff recommendation. Do oppose unless amended on SB 1385, going once, going twice. Member Monroe.
I just want clarification. It's listed as being an action item. I'm perfectly happy to have it be informational, but it's not listed that way currently.
Yeah, okay, so I'm sorry, my apologies. I was looking at what was sitting in front of my face, and I think that if you're going to make a recommendation on whether to support or not support bills, let's do a motion. Sorry about that.
Very good. So the motion.
Okay, well, in that case, I'd like to move staff's recommendation. How's that?
Very good. I'll accept that motion. Thank you, Member Monroe.
Kavanaugh seconds.
We've got a motion by Member Monroe and a second by Member Kavanaugh. And unless there's any other discussion, we'll go ahead and turn it over to the clerk to please call the roll.
Great, thank you very much. Alameda County. Alameda County, Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Berkeley.
Yes, sorry.
Yes. Great, thank you very much. Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Thank you. Hayward.
Yes.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy. Union City.
Aye.
San Leandro.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And I recall last year, just because we are scheduled to go dark in August and there is potential activity that could happen in that time in committee. Melissa, do you foresee needing anyone to weigh in on any possible changes in position? We kind of had executive committee on standby last summer in case we needed to write new letters or reach out to our members in state legislature.
Yes, so certainly I think our legislative program that was adopted by the board does allow for, in times where there are no board meetings, for us to have Nick consult. I believe it's both with the board chair and vice chair on any changes on legislative positions. And we can certainly keep the board updated by email as well.
That would be great. And member Calb has offered his services as well if you should need him to reach out to a member. Thank you so much for that update. And I just wanted to throw one other thing out there. I really appreciate having Alec on this meeting and our engagement at the federal level this year and bringing the board into that. I hope that the board can be more involved in the earmark process and looking forward and years going forward as our projects get bigger and even more attractive to our senators and our members of Congress. So thank you so much for your good work, Melissa and Alec. And with that, we can go ahead and move on. Next up is item 16. This is our prepay transaction summary. This is an information item, and we've had a lot of experience with the prepays, but this is the latest update. I'll turn it over to our COO, Howard, to present.
Great. Thank you, Chair Martinez, and good evening, board members. This is an informational item. Excited to share the results of our second energy prepaid transaction. As noted, I have presented on this topic a number of times now to the board and our various subcommittees, but we were successful in closing the transaction. So now following up on the previous approvals to share the results of what we were able to close on. So as a quick reminder, on May 18th of this year, the board approved moving forward with our second energy prepaid transaction. And then shortly thereafter, the CCCFA, the California Community Choice Financing Authority, which is our debt issuance conduit, also approved moving forward with it. And so with that, while we worked with Morgan Stanley as our bond underwriter and energy prepaid supplier, we were able to successfully price the bonds just about a month ago on June 28th. And then we closed the transaction about a week ago on July 12th. And sorry, Adrian, it's, oh, there we go, okay. Great, hold it there. Wanted to share the high level summary details of how that transaction closed. The total bond proceeds were just shy of $939 million, exact number there. The start date of the transaction, this second transaction of ours, is April 1, 2023. So spring of next year. The tenor of the initial bonds is a 6-year tenor. It's a little shorter than we were sort of expecting, but you're really looking at the taxable and tax exempt rates and looking at the cost curves to determine sort of the optimal discount levels that we can achieve. And the 6-year tenor bonds resulted in that optimal level. The cost of issuance listed here is 0.61%. That's fairly industry standard for the various bond underwriting fees, counsel fees, things like that to sort of execute on the transaction itself. And then the most important number here is this last one. The total annual savings that we locked in was roughly $4.8 million. That is the savings that we've secured for our second transaction. If you take that into account with our first transaction, we've now secured annual savings of over $7 million. Of course, that is once this one starts to actually deliver, which is in early 2023. So that number, 7 million, is roughly 1% of our discount as part of our value proposition. So really excited to sort of share that in context of what that secures for our value proposition. Both of the prepaid transactions, this one included, are 30-year prepaid transactions. The second one, because it's a 6-year bond, those savings are locked in until 2029. At that point, we will need to reprice the bonds based off of future market conditions. So the subsequent savings levels will be determined at that stage. we do have some minimum levels that are guaranteed in the contract that allow us to walk away if those minimum levels are not hit. So that's the good news, but largely they will reflect market conditions. The first transaction, those savings are locked in until 2032. That was a 10-year bond on that. So a little difference in tenor, as you can see. In terms of the energy contracts that we're signing in, we do have a variety of kind of long and short-term renewable energy and large hydro contracts that we're putting through this structure, and they are all source specified PPAs that are being assigned in. The last note here is in terms of the various parameters that the board approved in the resolution. We have complied with all of those. It was an aggregate amount, principal amount not to exceed $1 billion. As noted, it is, or I should say not as noted, but as listed here, is about $931 million in principal amount. And the minimum savings that was approved by the board was set at $4.50 per megawatt hour. And what we've achieved is over $7.30 per megawatt hour. So quite excited by those results. And lastly, I'll just note this is our second prepaid transaction. It is the third one that CCCFA has issued. And as we look at future opportunities, we will certainly consider doing additional prepaid transactions if markets are suitable. And we have the energy contracts to assign in, which we certainly expect to be able to do. With that is my presentation, and happy to take any questions or comments.
Great, thank you, Howard. Vice Chair Lopez, go ahead.
Thank you, Howard. I just want to say thank you again, Lee, for all your work here. You've done amazing by the organization, saving us so much money. And I know that you've blazed a trail in this space as well, so that many other CCAs in the state can follow suit. So thank you very much for your work, and thanks the whole team on my behalf and the city of San Leandro's behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other questions at this time? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take public comment. Mr. Clerk, have any electronic comments or speaker cards been submitted on this item?
There have been no speaker cards submitted for this item.
Okay, and seeing no hands raised among our attendees, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Colleagues, any discussion on this information item on our latest prepaid transaction? I will go ahead and echo what Vice Chair Lopez has said. This came up on our first round, but this really levels the playing field for us with what the fossil fuel industry is able to do with their financial transactions. So I'm really grateful to Howard and the whole team for even coming up with this very ambitious idea of going into a prepaid transaction, which as it duly noted, it offers deep savings to our ratepayers and a lot of advantage to our CCA. So thank you for that presentation. That'll move us to item 17. This is the joint rate mailer and draft 2021 power content information item. And is Annie here? There she is. All right, Annie, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening. So I think my internet might be lagging a little too. Good evening, everyone. So this is, as the chair said, the joint rate mailer and 2021 power content draft presentation. This is something that we took to the executive committee, and we were requested to bring it to the full committee for your awareness. This is a compliance customer notification that goes out to all of our existing customers. So it was presented prior to that notification being sent. It was sent subsequently, so it has already gone out to the public. What we're going to look at is largely the same presentation I made to the executive committee with a couple additional slides to note and respond to some of the questions that were brought up. Could we go to the next slide, please? So first, I just wanted to make sure that there is a clarification. There are two things with very similar names. One is the joint rate comparison, the other is the joint rate mailer. The comparison is a PDF document that lives on our website and on PG&E's website. We are required to update that throughout the year based on any change to either PG&E or EBCE rates. When we did publish this most recently in March of this year, it was the first time that the PCIA value for a PG&E customer was noted in the chart. Previously, that value had been embedded into the PG&E generation rate. And so if you are to look at our current joint rate comparison, you will see that the PG&E customer pays the most current power charge indifference adjustment, or PCIA, which is higher than the standard PCIA charged to EBCE customers, which is for the vintage year 2018. And so when you look at that, you really need to take the generation rate plus the PCIA, and that represents the total amount charged by that provider, and that is the appropriate place to compare the two. The joint rate mailer is required also by the PUC. It is a fixed template. It goes out once a year, either by email or hard copy mail. It is co-branded with PG&E. There isn't a whole lot we can do to change its presentation. It also includes the draft power content for the previous year. So it's current rates, or as current as can be expected based on the timeline to develop and publish and mail out this notification. So current rates, but last year's power content. And that is considered draft because that is based on what we submit to the California Energy Commission as part of the Power Source Disclosure Report, which is not fully approved until later in September, October. What we did, based on some feedback we received regarding the joint rate comparison, is for the joint rate mailer, we decided it made more sense to show the current PCIA vintage, so that in that section of the comparison, it was apples to apples between PG&E and EBCE rates, and it made it much more clear that there was a discount for Bright Choice. So if we could go to the next slide, please. I think the next slide is just going to show, again, that comparison of how to calculate the rates on both. And I think I summarized what is there in the slide already. If we could go to the next slide, this is just a very small version of what we sent out to customers. If we can go to the next slide, what I've done is just created a table for the rates component of this. So what you can see is that on the left, you have the joint rate comparison. The PCIA is the 2021 vintage for PG&E. It's the 2018 vintage for EBCE. And if you were to look at this quickly, you would say, Bright Choice generation rate is higher than PG&E. However, that is not correct because you need to add both the PCIA and the generation to get the true cost to the customer. So in sending out the joint rate mailer to try and eliminate some of that potential customer confusion, we just used the 2021 vintage PCIA for all customers, and there it is more easily identifiable that Bright Choice generation rate is in fact less. And so there was some comments, if we could go to the next slide, please. Some comments from the executive committee and member of the public about, how do our rates compare to other CCAs? And so I did go back and I looked at the joint rate mailers from previous years. I was able to see the joint rate mailer for this year for the CCAs listed, with the exception of Clean Power Alliance. They have not yet posted that publicly, and I will note that I in fact did identify an error. Their base product for Clean Power Alliance, which is in LA County area, is not 23% premium, it is 18% premium, and their their comparable renewable 100 product is not 23% premium, it's in fact 29% premium. I do want to note that, as I said earlier, the joint rate mailers and all analysis is based on the best information of the time. Since I drafted this, we, of course, EBCE has approved a 3% discount to our Bright Choice product, and Clean Power Alliance has also approved discounts. So they're seeing the same thing in Southern California Edison territory that we are with PG&E, where the PCIA has gone down and the associated investor and utility rates have gone up, giving them a little bit more headroom. So they are planning to, effective July 1, change their base product to 3% to 0%, and their premium product to a 3% adder. So we are well in line, I think, with the rest of the CCAs. You can see that because of how we have determined to set our rates, that it is pegged to PG&E, we show consistency over time as a comparison to PG&E. However, if we were to base on something else, such as cost of service, what you would see is greater variability in comparison to PG&E over time, which is what I'd like to point out for MCE Clean Energy. So they base on their cost of service, which for their base product in 2021 was 18% more expensive. For this year, because PG&E's rates went went up considerably, it's now negative 16%. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the other component of the joint rate mailer is this draft power content comparison. I will note here that we are representing 48.7% renewables for PG&E. That's likely in their final power content label, which has to go out by October 1. That will likely be 48.1%. These were the numbers they had approved at the time we were sending out the joint rate mailer. It's 0.6%, but I did want to just note that in case when you see the power content label, you quickly pull up your slides from this meeting to make a comparison. That's why you'll see the change. However, it's unlikely that our EVCE numbers will change. I don't know that we've ever had any revisions done. So our numbers for the year of 2021 was 42.3% RPS renewables for Bright Choice, and then another nearly 16% for the large hydro. If we can, and I'm going to sort of dig a little deeper on these numbers now. If we can go to the next slide, please. So previously, the way that we had targeted our procurement for the Bright Choice product was to look at PG&E's forecast for renewable energy procurement and then add 5%, which we thought would be enough to guarantee that every year we had a higher renewable content percentage than PG&E. So when we looked at the forecast, when we were setting our procurement strategy, PG&E had forecast 36.2% for their renewables. Adding 5% brings us to 41.2. In fact, we were at 42.3. So if they had stuck to this forecast, we would have been above PG&E. However, if we can go to the next slide, what we are seeing is even though we beat our target, PG&E's forecast was off, and they are at 48.7. Over the years, we have consistently been higher than PG&E, but looking forward, because of this difficulty in really trying to peg to this forecast, as presented in several other board presentations by Jim Dorrance on the Power Resources team, we are shifting our procurement strategy from this peg to a PG&E forecast to instead focus on our own goal for 2030, 100% clean for Bright Choice product. So this year we're looking to reach 50%. That's in calendar year 2022, and then in calendar year 2023, looking at to achieve 54% as our target. If we can go to the next slide, please. I just want to talk more about sort of our RPS percentage over time compared to PG&E. So as I briefly noted, we have consistently been above PG&E with a banner year in 2019. 2020 was a much leaner year due to the PCIA increase. But as you can see, overall, on average, we have come in about 9% above PG&E. We can go to the next slide, please. And then I also, based on feedback we received from the executive committee and members of the public, wanted to look at our power content and the rates that we offer compared to other CCAs. And this was a bit tricky because the joint rate mailer has your current rates, but the previous year's power content. So what I tried to do here was I looked at the 2021 joint rate mailer for the rates that were being applied, compared that to the 2022 joint rate mailer for the power content. So what we saw across the board for the year 2021, as far as I can tell, and again, these are actually all based on the joint rate mailers, because this, I did not include CPA because they have not published theirs yet. You can see that the higher percentage of renewables in most cases for CPF and MCE resulted in a higher rate being charged. For those that had maybe a higher percentage non-nuclear carbon-free, there were some that accepted the nuclear allocation from PG&E. So there are a lot of factors that work into your power content and procurement, as well as your rate setting. So wanted to provide some of the comparisons for this board. And then our final slide tonight is just some highlighted points. I think this was a little bit more critical to the executive board when it was before this went out. I will say the joint rate mailer went out the end of June, and then there was sort of some of the failed emails or had to be mailed out. So those happened the first couple days of July. So we are at least 2 weeks past that. And what we have seen is there have been no significant increases in opt-outs. There has not been a significant amount of call volume to our call center, which was perhaps initially a concern when we saw that PG&E was reporting a higher renewables content than EVCE. And so for the discount, we've continually provided a discount. For the power content, we are focused on the 2030 goal of 100% clean power. And we are excited to present our new value proposition as part of the power content label mailer that will go out by October 1 of this year, since our joint rate mailer did only reflect the 1% discount for Bright Choice. And with that, it is the end of my presentation, and I'll pause for discussion in direction from the chair.
Great, thank you, Annie. Colleagues, is there any question for staff before we entertain public comment? Member Hannon.
Yes, Annie, thank you for the excellent report. Greatly appreciate it. Just a clarification, and you probably explained this at one time or another. Why would large hydro not be considered part of our renewables?
That is a definition from the state of California. I am not familiar. I'm sure there's someone on our team who knows the exact capacity at which it is considered renewable versus non-renewable.
Yeah, I believe.
But the idea, go ahead.
It's pretty small sizes, 20 megawatts,
30, I think it is.
30 megawatts thereabouts. And so the idea is essentially that eligible renewable would be more of like a run of river hydro facility. So not where you're fully damming the river, but it's sort of on the side. And I think part of the rationale is also to support new hydro technologies. But as such, the renewable eligible large small hydro tends to be an extremely small portion of the renewable mix.
Thank you, Nick.
Any other questions before we entertain public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll check in with our board clerk and see if any electronic comment or speaker cards have been submitted. And if there are or aren't, please handle those, and then go ahead and call the raised hands in order, please, Adrian.
Great. We have one speaker card submitted from Alita Dupree. Alita Dupree, I recognize you for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Diane Martinez and members. Alita Dupree, for the record, she and her. Thank you. There's my clock. Overall, we're doing a good job. Boy, this is a quiet meeting. I'm the only speaker here. We are doing a good job, and this can get tricky. And I think the explainers are pretty good. I'm still seeing 1.7% of nuclear. I mean, it's not a huge deal to me, but I really thought that we got away from that. And in seeing 40% of unspecified power, I think we have to have some kind of explainer of why we are buying so much of our power in unspecified product as opposed to maybe some more large hydro, because I have read in various quarters that unspecified power has a very high carbon CO2 content, because given that it's unspecified, it's most likely coming from natural gas, which I've seen that in a number of places. So we are doing some good work, but still 40% of unspecified and 1% nuclear means that we can certainly do better to clean up our portfolio. I am amazed at how PG&E got to 48% renewable. I'd like to see what their playbook looks like. And hopefully in this coming year, we're going to cross 50%. So yes, somebody can choose the 100% renewable product on the website and get that totally clean product. But not everybody can afford that. So I think we're doing okay with our balancing act, but those two things I mentioned really need to have some explaining. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Tom Kelly, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thanks, Adrian. So I've been watching this presentation, much with the CAC as well, with a sinking heart, I would say. And I just remind everybody, a lot of you weren't around back when this got started, but when it did get started, we made a promise to people that we would beat PG&E on greenhouse gases. Well, we don't, and we haven't for a couple of years. And of course, the staff now blames the board for that by saying that you refused to accept the nuclear allocation that was offered to you. So you're the ones that are responsible for the fact that EBCE's emissions are 3.5 times higher than PG&E. Then EBCE went to, well, we won't beat PG&E on greenhouse gases, we'll beat them on renewables. And for a while we did. And now it turns out that because we, looked at what PG&E forecast and we, it turned out that it was actually higher, that we've actually fallen below PG&E on renewables as well. And a big problem, and this is to you, Alita, the reason we have so much in unspecified power is because a big percentage of those renewables aren't really California bucket 2 renewables. It's renewables that exist outside the state of California that produce electricity that's consumed by other people who don't get to call it renewable, because we take the renewable energy credits and paper over the system power that you're seeing on that joint rate mailer. So the only thing I would say is, Director Cal, it's time for Oakland to go to 100% renewable. 5 or 6 other cities have already done it. The cities are the only savior for this agency, because it certainly is not going to be the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further public comments.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. That will conclude public comment. We'll bring it back to the board to deliberate, and we'll start with Chair Eldred for the report back on this item from the CAC.
Thank you, Chair Martinez. So the CAC did hear this item, and we really wanted to commend staff for the clarity with which they explained a really complicated topic. Being able to look at the pricing, including the PCIA, and explaining how that would be confusing to the public was particularly helpful. Comments and questions from the CAC and members of the public included a desire to understand more about the unspecified power, and a pretty universal desire to see a lower amount of that unspecified power in the mix, as well as some questions regarding the future potential to offer renewable 100 at price parity with PG&E. And we also wanted to thank staff for the level of responsiveness they've had to members of the public reaching out with questions, and they did an exceptional job in the meeting, responding directly to folks as they raised questions or concerns and really taking the time to talk it out. So just a lot of gratitude to our staff for that.
Thank you, Chair Eldred. I just wanted to give staff an opportunity to similarly reflect on questions raised tonight, if they'd like to handle any of those questions on unspecified power or the potential to bring Renewable 100 to parity with PG&E.
Well, let me speak a couple of things. One, the comment that was made around unspecified power and PCC2 renewables is an incorrect application, I guess. When we think about the power content label, PCC2s count as renewables. So when you think about a renewables content, that includes both PCC1 and 2. Unspecified power is not renewable, is the power that's not coming from renewables or large hydro. The unspecified power at that level, kind of reflects the fact that we decided as an agency not to accept our allocation of nuclear, and as an agency decided to compare ourselves to PG&E on the basis of the resources that we deem clean. And the agency has decided that nuclear is not sort of in our current definition of what we deem sort of a source of clean energy. So, as such, we really focus on large hydro and renewables. We focus on working to procure previously working to procure renewables at 5% above the best figure that we had from PG&E. And now we've shifted away from that to really focusing on our schedule to get to 100% clean energy by 2030. So that 40% or so largely reflects, I believe it's a little less than that. It's more like 35% unspecified, maybe 40%. I don't have the number right in front of me, but that reflects everything that we're not with our procurement policy. And executing on our procurement strategies based on those policies, it's everything that's left. Over time, that unspecified level will shrink to a point in 2030 where there will be no unspecified power, because 100% of our bright choice will come from clean energy sources, specified clean energy sources. So I think I answered the two. And then I guess the question about Renewable 100 price parity. So when we approved this year's budget, we reduced the cost of Bright Choice and we reduced the cost of Renewable 100. And we also set ourselves up to reconsider whether we may want to make additional value proposition enhancements, likely in the form of a customer credit at the mid-year time, when we're able to actually evaluate, how our financial performance actually ends up. If you recall, we projected a very large surplus, but that very large surplus was, predicated on continued price trends in electricity that would allow that to form. It's really just too early to tell whether we're going to be doing better or worse than our forecast. But if indeed we are able to achieve the forecast, then I would expect there would be a customer credit of some sort that would be issued that would further reduce the cost of Renewable 100 relative to PG&E's standard rate.
Great, thank you, Nick. Member Monroe.
I just wanted to compliment the presentation, compliment staff for the work that's gone into this. I particularly appreciate the movement to not comparing ourselves to PG&E. I understand the need for it at the time. I'm glad that we've grown beyond that and that we're looking at where we want to be and have a timeline to get there. I also want to specifically respond to the comments about the board deciding not to take nuclear, because I'm still scarred from some of those meetings and listening to the frankly disinformation that came from the public and led to some of the decisions we made. And so I would like to turn it back to that public and say, we were warned by staff that the result would be exactly what the result is. We took some financial hits at the time, and the result is exactly what we were told it was going to be. We are recovering from that. We're doing extremely well, but I do not appreciate having the staff being thrown under the bus by the very people who were driving the bus. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Monroe. Member Tiedemann.
Yeah, I wanted to first of all thank the staff for giving that all of that information to us in easily digestible form. You know, if we were failing to meet PG&E on renewable energy year over year, I think it would be a bigger cause for concern. Sometimes they're going to beat us maybe, and I think having the average in that report really helps us understand that and know that this may be the exception. I also want to agree with Director Monroe and just bring this back. You know, this report really highlights for me the short-sightedness of turning down nuclear energy. We're being shown quite obviously that PG&E has a big advantage here of they have a large source of non-polluting energy that we have chosen not to take. And as highlighted in the language from the staff report that was in this presentation, that is a decision that is us saying it is more important to not have nuclear energy than it is to lower emissions. And as far as I understand it, that's not really what EBC exists for. We're about lowering emissions and saving the planet, and nuclear may have to be a tool in our toolbox to do that. And I think it is short-sighted of us not to take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Tiedemann. Chair Eldred.
Thank you, Chair Martinez. I'd like to really hold some distinctions. There are many members of the public who've been exceptionally grateful to staff and are not throwing them under the bus. And we have a strong working relationship with many, many, many constituents and a whole diversity of community-based organizations that regularly have mailers that go out about these topics, and we get feedback from their members and their constituents, and that feedback is like synthesized and brought to the CAC and to this body. So there are other things that are at play there. We heard very strong public opposition from a whole lot of people to the concept of nuclear power. There was also some support for it. Much like in this body, there was strong opposition from some folks and some support from others. As a group, we made a decision not to take that. There's more than one reason that there is that PG&E would have a high renewable content. Staff also told us, for those folks who weren't here then, that when we took away half of their customers, that PG&E's renewable content was going to show considerably higher because they were able to drop quite a lot of their emissions producing load. So that is not a direct result of what was not that significant of a nuclear allotment anyways. And there's a strong argument for and against nuclear power. I do not believe this is the forum for that, but I just want to really pull out that it is not all members of the public who are throwing staff under the bus, or however you would like to phrase that, and that it is important that the public have a place to express their frustration and bring their concerns, because they also represent a number of our constituents who do also feel that way. So this is a complex topic. This is not a direct result only of one decision that was made. Staff also told us that this would happen when we relieved PG&E of half of their customers. That's all.
Member Cow.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with what Director Annaleva Eldred just said as well. And I don't think we should dwell or re-argue things right now about nuclear power. I voted the way I voted, and I'm glad I did. And I think it was the right thing to do, or the better thing to do, all things considered, to not have nuclear as part of the portfolio. And I'm hoping other jurisdictions can phase it out as well, for a whole range of reasons that we are not new to anybody. It's been around for any length of time. But I think there is still challenges ahead for all of us as an organization, and as someone pointed out, for those cities that have not yet gone to renewable 100 for everybody, or almost everybody, and to see what more we can do to help facilitate and get more contracts of more renewables for our own portfolio that is reasonably cost competitive, and that increases our own portfolio in terms of our percentage of eligible renewables and clean power. And so we should just continue to do what we have done somewhat and try to step that up. And I think we have good staff to do that. I think they know we want them to do that, and to increase our portfolio. Maybe 2030 is a fine goal, but if we could speed it up a little bit more than that each year, and get to where we want to get to in 2028 or 29, and show a continual upgrade, great. Let's give it a shot and see if it's possible. And I think I think staff understands that we'd like to have it to happen as soon as we can. It can happen realistically, and we should just continue on that trajectory. I think there is some questions that I'd like to discuss offline about Oakland and how it will affect certain ratepayers who maybe are low income but are not enrolled in CARE or FARA. How do you set aside those? I don't know the answer to that, but that's a separate question that I and other cities might need to deal with before we go to all renewable 100. And I'd like to have that conversation with someone on staff sometime the next month or two. So I think that when members of the public are sharing their concern and criticisms, that they have obviously they have every right to do so, and they sometimes often make good points that we should consider. We don't have to agree with everything, but we have to respect their thoughts and take their suggestions if they're implementable, and see what more we could do. And we're all trying to get to the same goal. I'm quite sure of that. So I think we just got to keep on pushing it. Thank you.
Well said, Member Kalb. I agree with you that we can't go back and relitigate. There are reasons why Diablo Canyon's closing, but at the same time, I want to go on record as saying that nuclear in the future may not be what nuclear was in the past. So I hope, and it may not be while I'm with the organization, but I hope in the future, if nuclear comes up as an opportunity for, California or other parts of the world, certainly in Germany, it would have helped if they hadn't shut down all of their plants before the invasion of Ukraine. But now I'm getting off topic, but I just hope that we can always have deliberations based on facts more than feelings, and be data driven when it comes to our really important mission of driving down GHG emissions. And I know that the plan that we have in place to have clean energy for everyone by 2030 is a good one, and we're on solid footing with a foundation that the board and staff have put together with our community and with community input. Member Monroe, did you wish to speak again?
Yeah, I wanted to just appreciate the modification of my fairly strong words. I really appreciate the Chair Eldred pointing out that was one small piece, and I really appreciate that Member Kalb pointing out that we are really working towards the same goal. Frankly, my concern was the misinformation, and everybody didn't have misinformation, just to be clear, in one particular area. And I really, I feel that the staff is doing a good job. So that was my goal. So in as much as my feelings did get away from me, I do apologize. It's a strong issue. And I really, again, staff is doing a good job, and that was actually the goal. So in as much as that got buried, yeah, let's focus on that.
Thank you, Member Monroe. And this is a place for you to speak your truth as well as members of the public. So thank you for being so passionate about clean energy. That's what we need on this board. So Member Hannon, closing comments?
Yeah, just real quickly, I think you actually raise a good point, Madam Chair, that as we develop policies early on as members of EBCE, certainly technologies change and technologies improve. There might be an opportunity for us on a every 3-year basis or 5-year basis to review some decisions that were made by early boards to see if whether or not they still hold true today. Because as technologies improve and we look at cleaner energy moving forward, there might be an opportunity to re-examine some of the decisions we made in the past to see if there's an opportunity to revisit them. Thank you.
I appreciate those comments, Member Hannon. It's we're not there yet, but fission versus fusion, like there's changes afoot in other parts of the world, and science moves on. So we should always be taking advantage of what those innovations have to offer. So I appreciate the intention to look at our policies over again, and I'm sure staff hears that. So thank you, colleagues, for the robust discussion. I think it's time to move on to the next item. We've got item 18. This is director and CAC stipends. And is there a staff presentation on this?
Yes, there is.
All right, turn it over to Jason.
Yes, hello, thank you. Jason Bartlett, Finance Manager, East Bay Community Energy. This is an action item. It comes comes up from the request at a FAP committee and has been reviewed at the CAC, and I believe it has been presented to this board before and sent back for revision. What this is we conducted a survey of all the local CCAs to see what stipend they provide for board members as well as other committee members. And after a discussion, this was the result that came up as the recommendation. So given certain provisions in the JPA as well as established resolutions from previous board decisions, a board member receives currently at this time $100 per attended meeting, and CAC members receive $50 with each meeting. And this has been primarily specifically for board meetings themselves, the regular meetings. The changes made here, the proposed changes to our stipend policy would be that, number one, we would increase the stipend relative to the CPI, the annual CPI for the San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward Bay Area as presented by the U.S. Department of Labor. And that would be carried out every June, and it would be retroactive back to June of 2018. The second would be that this would also be applied to CAC stipends in the same manner. And the next recommendation that would be applied would be that directors would then be eligible to receive a stipend for up to a maximum of 4 meetings per month per member. And that would be applied for pretty much any subcommittee, board, or other sort of commission. If we could go to the next slide, please, or the next page. So the fiscal impacts on that is that currently we have 15 directors and 15 alternates, and 12 CAC members with 4 alternates. A couple of the members, have opted out of receiving stipends, so the numbers, will show that there is a reduction from those totals. The 12-month San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward CPI is shown here for starting from the base up to the current 2022, which is released in the mid-month of July. So these numbers are current, and it would show an approximate 20.07% increase from the base level, which is, as I said, currently $100 for directors and $50 for CAC members. This would increase the stipend to $120.07 for board members and $60.04 for CAC members. The annual maximum participation costs, and this assumes 100% attendance at 100% of the meetings, is currently about $29,400. With this, with the fiscal impact of this resolution, would increase the number of meetings that could be compensated, and as well as increasing the compensation rate, would increase the total expected cost by about 94%, or up to $56,914. And I think that is the entire presentation. All that is left is discussion.
All right, thank you, Jason. Colleagues, are there any questions for Jason at this time? Chair Eldred, questions?
Just clarification on the presentation that we received. You showed the total number of CAC members and the total number of alternates, but alternates are not paid to attend meetings, which I think this body should revisit for sure, unless they are serving in a voting capacity. Is that correct?
That's correct. It assumes that the full amount of CAC members are present at a meeting in terms of determining the maximum amount. Now, okay. Right, and so correct. An alternate that is showing up to replace someone would get paid, where an alternate showing up not replacing one obviously would not get paid. But yes, voting and participation.
Great, thank you.
All right, Member Cal.
Well, one just quick thing. I assume a closed session that happens the same day as our regular meeting is not a separate meeting. It's one and the same, right?
That is correct. Those are not
okay. Thank you. Okay, and just noting, $120 is the lowest I'm aware of any JPA in Alameda County. So if that's all we're allowed to do, fine. But we have certainly we have justification, given all the materials we have on these issues, to go higher. I guess our JPA agreement doesn't allow us to, but it's 120 is pretty low compared to everything else that happens in the county. I think we all know that.
Yes, this was discussed previously, and we one of the options that was brought last time to the board, if you remember, was that one option was that we could increase that base rate, but it would require a JPA amendment, and that was not what was voted to do.
And I would just clarify what Jason's referring to is we brought this to the FAP subcommittee.
Sorry, FAP
option. This was the recommendation that came out of there. I think in part because it would require some form of a JPA amendment in order to increase beyond the CPI adjustments, which we can certainly entertain for discussion here, of course, but we didn't present all of those options here in this presentation.
Right, thank you. Any further questions, Member Kelp? No, you just lowered your hand. Member Monroe.
I realize I don't have a question I wanted to discuss. I'll wait. Sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem. I will take this opportunity to ask our board clerk if anyone has submitted electronic comment or speaker cards for this item.
There has been no speaker cards submitted, nor are there hands raised for public comment.
Very good. Seeing no hands raised, we'll go ahead and close public comment at this time. And I'll bring it back for discussion. I see, I will recognize Member Monroe first.
Thanks. So two things. First of all, this was very informative, specifically in two ways, three. One, I had no idea you could opt out. Second, I didn't realize how low we were on the scale. But I wanted to direct us, however we decide tonight, and I'm perfectly fine with raising it. I think that whatever encourages participation good, and that in general, one of the barriers to participation can be simply cost of the cost for the individual to participate, because it's time not spent doing something else. So having said that, what I'd like to make sure that we do is, again, regardless of that, is make sure that we go and we see what other barriers we can lower going forward. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Member Hannon.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We did have a discussion at the Finance and Procurement meeting on this issue. And one of the first items that we did discuss was raising the stipend just per board meeting to $200. But as Howard mentioned, that would take an amendment, as I understand it, to the JPA. So we came back, and so we looked at a COLA increase on an annual basis, but then allow members to be then compensated for not just the board meetings, but for any subcommittees that they may be sitting on. So this is something that I had proposed because, in all honesty, we spend a significant amount of time with EBC at board meetings, and it's all, good time, it's fruitful time, and it's productive time. But I thought that we should certainly be compensated a little bit more for the amount of time that we're investing in this organization. So that was kind of the thought process behind it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the clarification. Chair Eldred.
Thank you, Chair Martinez. So last month, when this issue was brought up, we had discussed it at the Community Advisory Committee meeting. Staff let us know at last meeting that the recommendation hadn't been changed because this was the recommendation that had been put forth by the FAP. I really want to stress how important it is to the community members. These stipends, we have had a hard time retaining participation, especially consistent participation from our constituents who are low income. And we would really like to see that the CAC members who are constituents who have been appointed by this body and through a significant vetting process, who also spend a lot of time outside of these meetings preparing, going back to our constituencies, reporting out to groups. Like, we attend a lot of additional meetings to bring our perspective informed by our constituents to these meetings. And we'd like to see that participation, that the stipend awarded is equal to that of a board member. It is much like when we look at gender gaps in pay, even though the 50% relationship will maintain, as you look at that chart, the difference between what a board member is compensated for their time and the difference between what a CAC member is compensated for in their time has changed from $50 to $60 a meeting over with this proposal. And we really think it is important to send the message that our constituents who are subject to all the same rules and have to do all this outside work too are recognized as equally valuable as the board members. So we do ask that you consider matching the CAC stipends to that of the board.
Thank you, Chair Eldred. Member Hannon, did you have further comments?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I did not lower my hand, but I will take an opportunity to comment. I'm certainly respectful of the work that the CAC does. Their input and review of these documents is significantly important to us as we move forward as well. But we do recognize that they're a volunteer organization. We are board members. We are responsible to our constituents at the voting booth and everywhere else where these issues come up. I personally wouldn't have any objection to raising the CAC stipend to $75, including the COLA, but I don't believe that they should be paid at the same rate as a director. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Lopez.
Thank you. I actually echo that sentiment as well. I think maybe $75 would be the appropriate thing. And Member Hannon did point out the key difference is that we're accountable by the vote of the public. And we also report back to our city councils and are accountable to our councils and the will of our respective councils through our various legislative platforms and so forth and so on. So I do want to value our advisory committee, but I don't think they take on the same kind of risks that we do. They don't, they're not subjected to the public comment and the critique and the insights that come with public comment in the same way. And so I would propose something along the lines that what Member Hem is suggesting, which is 75. And then with the COLA increase as well. For now, we'll see. It's unfortunate that there are issues around retention. If that's the case, I don't think it's always just monetarily, but that's the reason why. I think sometimes with retention or recruitment, and if there's issues there, it might be because we just need to do more outreach into the communities. And I know EBC is really fantastic at outreach, but I think it might be good to see what other means we might be able to have in terms of recruiting and retention there. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lopez. Member Han.
Yeah, I mean, I'm subbing for Councilmember Harrison. Isn't the CAC written into the sort of the charter and the organizing? I mean, when EBCE was organized, the CAC was had an integral role. Is that not correct? I'm going from foggy memory here.
Yes, it is written into the charter that there shall be a CAC. It was also written that the board should decide any stipend for them.
Should decide on the stipend. Okay, sure, but I mean, it's an integral part. It's written into the charter. This is not just like a little community organization that decided to kind of, work in parallel. And I mean, they have prescribed roles in the charter. That seems to me I really cannot imagine why there would be a difference. If we are all important enough to be in the charter, and we are all pieces of this effort who have prescribed charter responsibilities, maybe ours as electeds are more public. I don't know. I assume the CAC meetings are open to the public, and they also have people who come and disagree with them at times. I haven't attended one of their meetings, but I guess I just don't feel comfortable with the idea. And honestly, we're talking about pennies here. This, I mean, for an organization of our size with the kind of budget that we have, I mean, it just feels unnecessary to nickel and dime. And I don't know, everybody's time is valuable and everybody is fulfilling a charter duty. I don't support having them be second-class citizens when it comes to compensation. I guess maybe I don't think elected officials are that special either. So I mean, I don't think of myself as like way above the community and not part of the community, and somehow that my time is more valuable or that I'm more worthy. But that may just be a personal thing.
Thank you, Member Han. Member Tiedemann.
Yeah, I would want to agree with Director Han. I'm really glad to see us have these discussions and talk about, what should people be paid, how it should keep up with the cost of living. These are discussions we've had at my own council, and I'm always there making the point of, it's very important to pay for these types of positions, because it's if you don't recognize that time and you don't pay for it, then it becomes a job only for people with the spare time to do it, who are retirees or have the money already. And I think that applies equally to us and the CAC. And I would agree, if we were talking about paying a full salary, I think the argument would go further for me, but because we're talking about a fairly low amount, all things considered. I think it's very reasonable to pay the CAC in parity to us.
Thank you, Member Tiedemann. Member Kalb?
Thank you. I'm just wondering, the thought came to my mind during this conversation. I know ACTC, the Transportation Commission, has, I think, 2, maybe even 3 specific advisory committees that are been around a long time, and I don't know how much, if anything at all, they get paid per diem for those meetings they attend. I'd be interested to find out and to see how that compares to the commissioners, what they get paid. I know, we wrestle at the City of Oakland, and I'm sure all of our cities wrestle with this when we have our commissions, whether it's an intense commission like a planning commission or a slightly less intense but still certainly important commission like whatever, library commission, whatever you happen to be. And in Oakland, we don't pay for virtually any of the commissions. They don't get paid at all. Maybe 1 or 2 get paid a little bit, but so yeah, I don't know the answer to this question. It's not a lot of money one way or the other, but that's clear. But I'm not aware that there's I'm just curious what other regional agencies do with their designated advisory commissions. In fact, I know BACMed has an advisory commission. I don't know if they get paid for those meetings or how much or what, but it'd be curious.
Jason, I believe Jason has looked into this. Jason?
Yeah. So Director Cal, to help kind of answer that for you, we did present a survey that we had done of some regional commissions beyond local CCAs at the March FAP committee meeting. And perhaps Adrian can help direct you to see that document that was presented there.
I will just note that the survey we did was for board members' stipends, however. So I think to this exact point, it sounds like it's more directed towards a community advisory type committee, and candidly not do a comprehensive survey of CAC type bodies.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And Olivia, Chair Eldred.
Thank you. Just to provide a little bit of clarity, I also sit on the MTC, so the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, Policy Advisory Council, the Equity and Access Subcommittee, the Bay, oh my gosh, it has so many names, the Next Gen Freeway Study through the Transportation Commission and some other bodies. And these are all community members who are appointed by electeds, and we're compensated at $100 per meeting for each of those bodies. I have also served for the City of Oakland in the Oakland Climate Action, Equitable Climate Action Planning Committee meeting where no stipends were received, and much like our inability to retain low-income voices in EBCE, our participation rate and the consistency of participation was exceptionally low. Sometimes there was not the ability to even make quorum in certain meetings. The folks who we have not been able to keep on the CAC are people who, I have to take vacations sometimes to attend meetings. There are other folks who actually have to take time off of our paid work to attend meetings. And so it's easier for me to do that than it is for some of the other folks. And it is one of the main reasons that we were not able to keep Reverend Chambers on the CAC, is he just couldn't afford to take the time off work. It's a very real thing. And yes, our meetings are open to the public. And yes, they disagree with us loudly. And it's not just in those meetings that they disagree with us. Folks will show up at the Labor Council. I was on the Alameda Labor Council Climate Action Planning Committee for almost 6 years. And folks showed up and they get aggressive and mad. And I've received over 50 emails on specific topics, especially around nuclear. I also attend city council meetings, and so do our other members. Like there's a lot of work that goes into this because we're supposed to represent groups. And so our job is to go back to those groups. And those are the folks we've had a hard time retaining, as opposed to the ones who are technical experts who maybe have more time because they only have to work one job, right? So just as perspective, that's where we're coming from.
Thank you, Chair Eldred. Member Hannon.
Yes, Madam Chair, two things. One, I would ask the executive committee at some point maybe to look at the JPA and whether or not the stipends that are paid to EBCE board members should be reconsidered in terms of an amendment to the JPA. Secondly, I'm ready to make a motion, and I want to make it clear that I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that I support staff's recommendation raising the stipend for the Community Advisory Committee to $75, including the COLAs as discussed. And it's not to be disrespectful to the Community Advisory Committee in terms of not bringing them to financial equity with the board members, but we are accountable to our voters, and we make decisions to which we have to go back and defend to our voters. None of my comments in any way should ever be construed as disparaging the work of the CAC. So I take offense to anyone thinks that that was the intent. So I would make a motion that we support staff's recommendation, increasing the CAC stipend to $75, including the COLAs. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. There is a motion on the table from Member Hannon. Second, I believe that was that Member Cox?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
There was a second by Member Cox, but I don't want to cut off any comments, so I will recognize Vice Chair Lopez.
Thank you. Well, I've heard from some of my colleagues, and I've also heard from the chair. You know, in no way am I suggesting that some people are more than others or other people are less than others. I could tell you, you know, as a council member, I'm pretty much at the bottom of any totem pole when it comes to being an elected. Yeah, excuse me. I've had a little bit of a medical issue this past week, so I'm having a hard time breathing. But I do think that there's a certain level of accountability that electeds do have, and that's why I think you know, the elected should be where they are. In fact, I think we should be getting more. And so please don't misunderstand me or assume for me or presume or speak for me when you say that I don't see you as an equal. I could go either, you know, at 75 or 100 for me at this point, you know, just given that there are other agencies that do go to 100 for the community participation. And I've always felt that, especially as a woman of color, that I've been undervalued, generally speaking, for my intellect and experience. And so I would see that having $100 stipend may attract more people of color who are interested in this space. And I feel that that could be a form of recruitment. So however the vote goes or motion goes, I'd be willing to vote either 75 or 100, but based on what I'm hearing, that in order for us to be competitive for those folks that are highly experienced on our community advisory committee, I'm leaning now more towards the $100 mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lopez. Member Hahn.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know what the tradition is here, but I would venture to make an alternative motion to bring the stipend to parity with board members. I don't know if there's a second for that.
I'll second that.
Have a second. Okay, thank you. I wanted to say a little bit about, I've experienced this, the idea of volunteers, while not always women, for a long time, the idea of a volunteer was a woman who gave a ton of time to the community and didn't get paid. For me, there's a little bit of an equity issue there. that women were sort of, you were a volunteer and men got paid to do stuff. Now, obviously, things are not as binary as they were at one time, but those are sort of the origins of volunteerism. And I have seen in other organizations that I've been involved with, when I have really gone out of my way to recruit, for example, a woman of color who was a single mom. And this was a not-for-profit organization whose environmental organization, whose local board I sit on. And I had lunch with her several times. I took a walk with her on the waterfront in Oakland while she, walked her infant. And she really wanted to serve on that board. And she couldn't because she needed childcare. She worked more than one job. And, a single mom, you need childcare. There are people out there who simply cannot serve on volunteer boards without a stipend. And this really shuts them out of public process. And I think serving on these boards is also a stepping stone to potentially running for office. So when serving on that board is literally impossible for certain people who have certain obligations or need to miss work or whatever, we just never hear from them. And of course, they tend to be low income. And we know that low income people are disproportionately people of color. So, I would love to see us step out in the lead here. We are talking about a very small amount of money for the organization. For me, it's an equity issue. And it's about empowering people whose voices we don't always hear to be present and to participate. And so I'm hopeful that folks will vote for the parity. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Han. Next up is Member Marquez.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate everyone's comments, especially from the chair of our advisory committee. I think I speak for myself, but my consensus and sense is that we all really respect and value your contributions. So I can support the increase of $100. I'm just not clear as to if the motion is $100 plus CPI or just a flat 100. Can that please be clarified?
My alternate motion is to exact parity with
the directors.
With the directors here, yeah.
Okay.
And it looks, Nick, you're talking, but we're not hearing you.
I'm sorry, your motion would be $100 plus CPI, not $100 flat. So the motions we have on the table are $75 or parity with the board, which is $100 plus a CPI, which I think gets to around $120, Jason?
That's correct, 120.07.
And are you considering the same cap as well, up to 4 meetings?
My motion is exactly the same, exactly the same terms, the same amount of money, all the same terms.
Okay, so my only clarifying question for staff is, do the advisory board meetings, is it common that they attend more than 1 meeting a month?
Not for our chair. She will attend the CAC and the board meeting, but no.
Just that one designated
It
position.
is just that one meeting, typically a month. And in some instances, there have been special meetings or study sessions, but
Okay.
one meeting a month there are.
Okay, so I support this request. I think it's important to honor that work and that commitment, and this could be key in retention and just addressing concerns with respect to equity. Also, because our budget is doing so well, I don't have financial concerns. If we had a different financial forecast, we may be having a different conversation, but I think we are in an opportunity to provide this incentive to individuals that are working hard on all of our behalf. So I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Monroe.
I'm happy to support either motion, frankly. As I said, I think that more, for those for whom it matters, and we should pay attention to that because it is a matter of equity. However, I wanted to draw attention to three different, we're really talking about three different things here. One is a question of different roles, and I think it's important to recognize that the role of an elected is different than the role of somebody on an advisory body. Now, that's different, that needs to be clarified in our thinking. Those of us who serve on this as part of our service as electeds have a different set of responsibilities. That's real. Does that mean the compensation needs to be different? That's a separate question. I think that's the one that we're discussing now. Thirdly, the third item that we're discussing, and it is actually part of that second item, which is equity. Why would we want to compensate people more? The primary reason I've heard and would agree with is because, again, for those for whom it matters, it really matters. But if what we're looking at is the very real issue of how do we make these positions more accessible, more equitable, more and really are able to have a more inclusive set of advisory bodies, then we need to be looking at this more broadly. And I would say that what I'd be concerned about is that what we're doing here is largely symbolic, one way or another, and needs to become more than that. So I guess, would that then be a matters initiated that should come up in terms of looking at how we can do that, or what would be the best way to take that larger issue, put that aside, and look at it?
What is the larger issue specifically?
The larger issue is around how we encourage people to join. What are the factors standing in their way? Is it recruitment? Is it childcare? Is it compensation? What are those factors? Because this is one piece of a larger problem, I suspect.
I would say that's probably a pretty large question that is beyond just a question facing EBC, but sort of all.
Oh, sure.
And so I would be a little hesitant to ask staff to really take on this deeper sort of question around what are all of the barriers to participation in our CAC as a member or participation in the public. I think certainly consultation with other agencies to think about best practices. I will say from a quorum standpoint, we have not had quorum issues as far as I understand at our CAC since the expansion of our CAC and the inclusion of a number of alternates. So, when we have gone out seeking candidates, we've always had sufficient candidates put their names forward for participation in our CAC. So those are the only comments I can sort of make about participation in the CAC.
Let me be a little clearer. I wasn't thinking about turning this to staff. I was thinking about this being something, since I've heard a lot of concern from board members, that this be something that be taken on by board members. But I very, very much would want to be respectful of staff's time.
All right, thank you, Member Monroe. Next up is Member Kumagai.
I support the substitute motion to have compensation at parity. I don't really view it as kind of, our stipend that we get as directors as kind of being a risk reward kind of exchange. And I don't view them having a stipend on parity with us as meaning that diminishes at all, the additional responsibility that we bear as elected board members here. I hear what my colleagues are saying, and And I respect that. I think that the fiscal impacts to the organization are minimal. I am very concerned with what the chair has mentioned about people not being able to stay on, or it kind of raising the bar so that they don't have access to this process. I want to make sure that our advisory committee is representative of the communities that we represent, and that we have folks who are stakeholders in this process and can provide a perspective that maybe some of us on this board, it's not part of our lived experience, right? So that's kind of what I hope to gain from the CAC. And if the stipend is preventing people from participating, which I always believe in, just in local government in general, local governance, the stipends are just way too low in general. And it's, none of us get paid any kind of living wage off of the amount of hours that we put into this, right? I mean, I would love and I'm always advocating for us, let's raise it up so that more people can participate. For people who are working wage-bearing jobs, and if they have to take time off or they have to lose out on money, they should be duly compensated, so at least they can participate. They're not going to get rich off of any of this, but at least they can participate without a personal expense to their finances, hopefully. So that's why I do support the substitute motion for on parity, and I would be supportive in future discussions of talking about it going higher, but I think that's a good start.
Thank you, Member Kumagai. Member Kalb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted some clarification, maybe. I think part of the reaction and the discussion and suggestions come from the fact that the board members are compensated pretty low compared to every other regional agency, county or Bay Area wide, JPA, that we're all very aware of. And this is probably the lowest one that I'm aware of for board members, for elected officials who are board members. And so if we were paid more, 150, 175, whatever, or even 200, like most other JPAs are, then going to 100 or even 125 maybe for CAC would make a lot of sense. It would be a significant increase. I think I'm sure tension's the right word, but the discussion that has been, because we're so low, bringing CAC up to a reasonable amount objectively ends up being right about at where we are as board members, and therefore it seems the same, therefore it seems odd and highly unusual. In fact, probably doesn't exist yet in any other agency in the Bay Area. So I think that's what's happening. I think having CAC get $100 or something like that per meeting is fine, but see, when someone said parity, that suggests it's going to always increase automatically every time the board members increase. Let's say our JPA raises our compensation to 150 or 175. Does that mean we're going to raise the CAC up to there too automatically because of this motion? I don't know if that's the intention, but I don't think we should be making that decision today. I think we should have a dollar amount here and not a permanent parity, which sounds like what the motion was. So I'd like some clarification on that.
That was not my intent. I was not thinking forward. So I'm happy to take a friendly amendment to just say 100 plus cost of living and the other terms that apply to the directors.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And does the seconder of the motion accept that friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Member Cox.
Thank you. I wanted to get our East Bay's council advisement in terms of the charter that was established and the different roles and responsibilities to make sure that we're in sync with that charter line of the pay and the responsibilities. The concern that I have is that if you equate the pay of our advisory board with the board members, there gives an impression that they have a vote. They have input as an advisory, but they're not a voting member. And so I wanted to make sure from a legal standpoint, as we are making some decisions tonight, that we have an actual advisement from our county, from our council, thinking of work right now, of our attorney.
General counsel,
That
it's
sits
fine.
on the board. Yeah, that we're making the right decision and that basis, because the whole power authority that was formed for East Bay is based on certain roles and responsibilities, and especially relating to the board of directors and the establishment also of the advisory board. So I wanted to get a legal ruling on that first.
Thank you, Member
So I'm
Cox.
clear. So I'm
General
clear on
Counsel,
the
are
voting.
you ready to jump in on this one?
I'm pulled up the joint powers agreement. Sorry if you can hear background noise. And while I don't think I can give a ruling, so to speak, I can tell you what the role of the Community Advisory Committee is. So the language of the joint powers agreement, as we noted before, currently just leaves it to the board to set a stipend for the CAC. So just that's the starting point. But it does create the CAC. And it creates, and we added language with respect to alternates. And essentially it will be, the role is to advise the board of directors on all subjects related to the operation of a CCA program as set forth in a work plan adopted by the board of directors from time to time. Note that we have provided direction to the CAC, and they do have some formation documents which provide more of a role for them that's specific. I don't have that in front of me right now. The joint powers agreement, or the charter as it's being referred to, is a little bit more open-ended and says that the board shall tell the CAC what you expect from them. So it's not, I don't know that it's decisive on the parity of roles or anything like that. In fact, it defers to the board really to set those ground rules.
Member Cox, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I guess based on that advisement, we can set the pay for the advisory whichever way we would like to in the direction of the board. So that answers that question. The other part is that as far as, we can set aside money, have all these things that the pay and in line with what is a voting board member, a director. The part that I am hesitant on is that I'm all for equal pay, don't get me wrong, but you could still have barriers even after you give the money. And with that, the money probably will help economically and for the time and feeling more valued and appreciated. But the other part is if there's still recruiting issues that even the money can't solve, I'm just trying to, to kind of decipher on that aspect of it, because it's a more of a systemic problem going on to recruit and maintain and changing the strategy versus on that aspect. The other part is that when I look at other commissions around the area, I represent Fremont. We do not pay our commissioners for any monetary serving on any commissions. There is no monetary payout, except if you're serving on the planning commission, there is some sort of compensation, but again, it's, within that $50 to $100 range. I don't have it in front of me, but, there is some sort of compensation for meeting. But other than that, everybody else that's not on the planning commission for the city of Fremont, they do it out of love and dedication and service. And they do give input into our city council meetings where needed, whether it's a transportation project. We may have the mobility commission, for example, provide advice, but they're not compensated. So I wanted to also add that into the mix there as we're trying to make a decision here.
Thank you, Member Cox. Member Hannon.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm going to ask Board Member Cox if she would join me, and I'm going to go ahead and withdraw my motion. And I will support the substitute motion. But again, I want to state for the record that we recognize the unique perspective that the Community Advisory Board brings to us, both from a union standpoint, from an environmental standpoint. They have a lot of expertise in some of those areas to which we don't have, or I don't have. And I certainly appreciate the issues and the ideas that they bring forward to this board. They're welcomed and they're appreciated. The characterization of the Community Advisory Committee as second-class citizens was completely out of line. I don't know where that notion came from. We discussed this at length at the Finance and Procurement meeting. These issues did not come up. It was simply a matter of accountability. So the notion that we view them differently was incorrect. So I withdraw the motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And I will also withdraw my motion, and I appreciate, I feel the same way as my director Hannon has spoken here. So let it be said for the record, we value equality, we value the diversity of opinions and the representation. So therefore, I am withdrawing the earlier motion as the second.
Okay, thank you. Chair Eldred.
Thank you, Chair Martinez. I really do appreciate the discussion here tonight. And we did create documents. We had to create the documents that say this is what we're going to be focusing on and bring it to the board. We have brought it back for amendment. So if folks are interested in seeing that, we're happy to share there. We do work on some specific projects or development of projects that ideally has a higher level of community input and more dialogue. So things like creating the metrics and things like that are projects that we work on. And if anybody is interested in addressing some of the other barriers, because that is a very real point that has been brought up, there are many of us on the CAC who are actually quite familiar with the issues that other members have had, or our inability to recruit from some of the perspectives that we don't have represented. We do have folks who apply for the CAC, but it's that specifically kind of the low income voice and some of those other voices that we are having a hard time recruiting for and retaining in. So if folks are interested in working in that, myself and several other of us would be thrilled to volunteer to work on that.
Thank you, Chair Eldred. Vice Chair Lopez.
I'd like to call the question, please.
All right, we have a motion on the table by Member Hahn, a second by Member Tiedemann. Member Hahn, would you restate the motion just for everyone's clarification, please?
Yes, with the friendly amendment that we accepted, it is to set the compensation for CAC members at $100 plus cost of living, and on the same terms as if there are any other terms that apply currently to members of this board.
Okay, and what is it in regards to the recommendation for board members?
Oh, remind me where that one is going. Sorry, I don't have it open in front of me right now.
With the staff recommendation, we would have looked at the escalator from base at 2018, I believe, and that would bring us up to a new stipend of $120.07.
Yes, that's part of the motion.
Chair,
Okay.
with the up to 4 meetings per month.
With up to 4 meetings per month, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Great, thank you very much. Hold on one second. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Hold on one second. Berkeley.
Yes.
Dublin.
Aye.
Fremont.
Aye.
Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore.
Aye.
Newark.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy. Union City. San Leandro.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Motion passes.
That's a unanimous vote, folks. Thank you so much for engaging in this conversation. I didn't have anything to add that wasn't already said. We're this public service on behalf of the board and by the CAC is so much a labor of love. My mayor noted in a meeting this month that he calculated what he was getting paid hourly as mayor, and it's 70 cents on the hour for all of the work that he did in the last month. We're all here because we really care, and I appreciate all of you. And we all should get paid more. And with that, I will also just second Member Hannon's direction to send the JPA to executive committee. If there's any objection to that, please let me know. But I think that we should be exploring our compensation overall, but this is a good first step to at least bring us up to where we can be in light of what our JPA says now. So thank you all for the robust conversation. I want to apologize that I can't turn my camera on. I just seem to lose internet every time I do that. But next up is item 19. This is the chair and vice chair elections. And colleagues, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to take public comment first. Is there anyone, Mr. Clerk, who has submitted any electronic comment or speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards have been submitted for this item, and there are no hands raised for this item.
Very good. I'll just give it a couple more seconds in case anyone changes their mind. And seeing no hands raised, we will go ahead and close public comment on this item. And I just want to give a little preamble. Our history with this issue is to have our chair serve 2 consecutive one-year appointments. But of course, you know, that is up to the will of the board. I have had a discussion with Vice Chair Lopez, who is willing to serve another term as vice chair. I am willing to serve another term as chair, but I do need to inform my colleagues that sadly I will not be running for re-election. I believe that Vice Chair Lopez will be termed out of her seat in San Leandro. However, we'll both be here for the remainder of the year, and we'd be happy to provide some continuity to the institution and continue to serve as your chair and vice chair as long as we can to whatever meeting we get to, and I believe it'll be December. So just wanted to put that out there, and now would be happy to entertain nominations or discussion, and I'll recognize first Member Kalb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, has been our tradition for the chair and vice chair to serve 2 years, although it's not required, but I think it's a good tradition. So I'm happy to nominate Councilmember Diane Martinez and Councilmember Corina Lopez as chair and vice chair respectively for, do I need to say for how long? Should I say for the remainder of this calendar year?
I'll second.
Second. Second.
Oh, thank you all. Let's see. So the motion was by Member Kalb, and the second I'll accept is from Member Marquez. That's the official one. There's a bunch of unofficial ones that we really appreciate. Member Monroe, did you have any comments or nominations?
I'm just confused.
Oh,
Since you're, and first of all, who said you were not allowed? You're not allowed not to run, so that never. I'm just saying. So if you're not, can someone clarify the process for what happens when you both go poof in December? As will I, by the way.
I'm going to venture to guess that the remaining board will have the opportunity with the newly appointed members to make a selection again, but I will punt to our general counsel, Inder, to confirm that.
I would suggest that we agendize an item for chair, vice chair deliberations, as soon as any new members are seated.
Yeah, so it would happen coincident with, reorganization with all of our individual agencies.
So sometime in December or January.
Yeah. So Member Marquez, did you have comments?
Sorry for the noise. So obviously I seconded the motion because I highly respect and appreciate your leadership as well as Vice Chair Lopez's leadership. And I think that organizational history and just continuity is going to be key. So we all really have to step it up in this next year. But I do have a question. Do we have a secretary or parliamentarian position? I don't think we do, but I just wanted to double check just to kind of.
We do not.
We do not. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Kavanaugh?
Yes, I also have my camera off. I don't have a stable internet connection. I also wanted to clarify my understanding of the timing because I'm guessing, for example, on our council, we will also have a turnover as most of us would after the November election. And so I think we would have a window and we probably on our council would appoint new members to their liaison assignments in the December timeframe, but likely their first meeting would not be until January. So just wanted to confirm who would be the chair and vice chair sort of for our December and early January meetings, assuming that our current chair and vice chair would not be in attendance and perhaps their replacements may not be identified and other cities may not have their new folks in place. So do we have an interim that would get us over that bridge?
So usually if you don't have either your chair or your vice chair in attendance, essentially I look for the board to nominate somebody for the night. And hopefully there's somebody who's raising their hand and volunteering to take on that role. Although we wouldn't be formally appointing anyone tonight, but this could be raised as a topic of conversation prior to the departure of our chair and vice chair, where you at least appoint an interim to cover any meetings that would fall in that gap. Because I too share the concern that we might have meetings in which we don't have the new members yet, and we don't have our chair and vice chair.
Agreed.
I think that's a good idea, Member Kavanaugh, that we can go ahead and direct staff. If there's no objection, we can direct staff to set those meetings to make sure that we have full coverage before we do an official reorganization. And Member Kavanaugh, your hand is still raised. Do you have further questions or comments?
I do not. I will figure out a way to lower my hand. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And as we've already asked for public comment, we have a motion on the table. We can go ahead and turn it over to the clerk to please call the roll.
Great, thank you very much. Hold on one second. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Dublin.
Aye.
Fremont.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore.
Yes, some enthusiastic adjective, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Newark.
Aye.
Yeah. Oakland.
Aye.
Great, thank you. That was a yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Piedmont.
Yes.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy. Union City. San Leandro.
Aye.
And Emeryville.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Colleagues, I'm grateful for your confidence, and I look forward to serving out through the end of my term. And, you know, this goes hand in hand with the previous conversation that we had about compensation. You know, it's for so many of us who are not only financially constrained, but time constrained. As you know, I'm someone who lives in the sandwich generation, taking care of older folks, taking care of younger folks, holding down a full-time job, and trying to do the public service to the best of my ability. And 8 years for this tenure has been my cap. And I'm not saying I'm not going to come back for another round, but for the time being, I need to focus on the job that actually pays my mortgage. So it's, I quite enjoy, I do have to say that my service on East Bay Community Energy is the highlight of my city council service. And I really appreciate all of you, including all of the members of the CAC. So you make all of this worth it. Member Hahn.
I would just like to say that your stepping down is a huge loss for Emeryville and for the East Bay and for this board. And I think you have just made the best argument there is for this work to be better compensated. And so we will miss you.
Oh, thank you. Well, you got to deal with me for another 6 months. So I hope for that you get to come to more meetings in the future, Sophie. And thank all of you for just being such really engaged colleagues. It's just such a pleasure to serve on this board. And Vice Chair Lopez is part of the reason.
Well, I just want to thank everybody as well for all your support. And, you know, this is one of my favorite things about my council role is to be on this, in part of this fold, because I think we have such great ideas together and we really are breaking ground in the world in terms of not only offering something of value added to our constituents, but really helping our future as well. So thank you for allowing me to help lead that conversation. And yeah, regrettably, I am not running for another council role. So I will leave at the end of the year, as it's already been mentioned by Chair Martinez. And I know that the first thing that's going to happen come January 1 is I'm going to miss this particular group of people very much, because you've been very professional, very smart, and very dedicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lopez. And you, well, I will miss it too. And you may see myself and Member Lopez in the attendees box in the peanut gallery. That's what I predict.
I don't believe it for a moment.
You don't know, Member Hannon, when I am in a hotel in other cities, I just flip around until I get to public access and I watch other people's planning commission meetings. So you don't know what my idea of fun is. But colleagues, noting the hour, I will ask if there are any future, actually, we have item 20. Adrian, do we need to take action to schedule this AB 361 meeting, or are we able to just schedule that due to your doodle poll that you did?
We can call a special meeting. We just need 24 hours advance notice. I don't think it requires a vote of the board. We can just go ahead and schedule it.
Okay, so this is just here for our information. Adrian has been communicating with the board over email, just so we can stay in good standing with our findings for AB 361 and continue to meet via teleconference. And that is why this item is here. So next up is item 21. And are there any further board member announcements or requests for future agenda items? I will recognize Member Monroe.
I just wanted to follow up on this question of looking at how this board can work towards other areas of access. I know that Chair Eldred said that this was already a matter of concern. I know that that there were people who had been talking about this. I know that this is something that Member Kumagai has been working on in other areas as well. Chair Martinez, I hear you. I see, my seat's going poof. I don't have a choice, but I know that it's something that I hear other people struggle with for exactly the same reasons you've mentioned. So, I mean, we can't fix the whole system, but, and I do not want to put this on staff. But if, you know, if I can, I don't know, matters initiated or whatever, put together subcommittee.
You know, Member Monroe, I did have the opportunity to direct staff to take a look at the JPA and our opportunities for, you know, compensation. If we were to make a change there, I think that would be the right forum to have those same conversations about obstacles for public participation. So I think we should fold it in because I think those conversations should be held in concert, if that's okay with you.
Oh, totally fine. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So let's do that. Next up, I will recognize Member Marquez.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to piggyback on Director Monroe's recommendations. I also just want to get an update if we can, maybe in September, October, whatever is feasible for staff, just on what is the current makeup of our CSC, what are the vacancies, and just to remind us all of the recruitment process and how many alternate positions are actually available. A member of the public actually reached out to me probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I think this conversation is very timely, and I think it's good that we all have the same information. So if that can be provided, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
That's great, Member Marquez, and I agree that we can get that information, and all of us as board members should be keeping those folks who reach out to us in our back pockets and recommending them for those CAC slots, because it's good to have that diversity of all of our different cities. Member Kalb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to invite everybody. This Saturday afternoon is the 20th anniversary of Oakland's Art and Soul. It's all outdoors, so it could be COVID safe, hard to say these days. So do what everybody needs to do to feel safe, but it's all outdoors. Great music, great food, Dynamic Faye Carroll, Alphabet Rockers, Kev Choice, West Coast Blues Society. It's great for the family, and you're welcome to come. It's in and around Franco Gawa Plaza in downtown Oakland from noon until 6. It's free this year, 20th anniversary of Art and Soul.
Great, thank you, Member Kalb. And seeing no, Member Cox.
Well, I got to thank my fellow board member Kelp from Oakland to remind everyone also to come down to Fremont. We have every Thursday now, between now and August the 11th, we have our free concert series right there at Lake Elizabeth, and have exciting bands every week, plus food trucks and a lot of literature, information, giving out shots for COVID, a little bit of everything associated with our summer, in terms of our summer concert series. And then also we're reopened again for our Fremont Festival, Arts and Wine Festival, which is the first weekend on Saturday and Sunday in August. And also we do have the India Independence Day Parade, which will be on August the 20th on Sunday, starting at 10 a.m. Downtown Fremont. So come on south, come and enjoy. We're the most southern point of Alameda County, but we welcome all of you. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the invitations. And if that's the end of announcements, thank you all for your time this evening. I think this was a robust meeting as always. And, you know, it was, I think we got a lot done in 2 hours and 37 minutes. So the time, Mr. Clerk, is 7:37 and this meeting is adjourned. Have a great summer, everyone.
Be safe, everybody.
Be safe.
Have a good summer. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.